A refugee needing urgent medical treatment will be flown out of Nauru to Australia tomorrow morning after the Nauruan government blocked her transfer to Australia despite a federal court order. An urgent court hearing last night heard a senior Nauruan government official refused to grant the approval because she wasn't convinced it was a medical emergency. Human rights lawyer George Newhouse has represented asylum seekers in detention. He's also adjunct professor of law at Macquarie University and he joins me now. George Newhouse, welcome. So what's the background of this case?
Look, this is a very concerning case. You have a woman with serious mental illness. A court has ordered her to be brought to Australia for medical care because there isn't adequate care for that person on Nauru. And the Nauruan government has stepped in and blocked that medical evacuation.
What was the basis for the federal court order?
The basis was medical, purely medical. It's extremely difficult to get refugees brought to Australia, and the only basis they can be brought here is where there's a desperate need for medical treatment that's not available.
And what do you understand was the Nauruan government's concern about this order?
Look, ABC reports are saying that it was due to the fact that a bureaucrat or a government official did not believe that it was a medical emergency. Now, it's very disturbing that unqualified bureaucrats or government officials are making life or death decisions.
Isn't that within the power of the Nauruan government, though, to determine who is allowed in and out of the country?
Absolutely. But, and it's not the first time this has happened. They've actually tried to stop opposition leaders from leaving Nauru to get heart treatment. But then on the other hand, government officials regularly charter planes to travel to Australia or New Zealand for medical treatment. So there's a distinction between the way that government officials treat themselves and refugees and their opponents. But it's extremely concerning when someone's health's at risk for a government official to step in and actually overrule it.
The good news is that she's due to come in tomorrow, though, but are you still concerned that this could be the start of some kind of new trend with the government intervening?
Well, let's hope that this woman is allowed to leave tomorrow, but if she does, that's great news. But yes, it is a matter of some concern that you see government officials stepping in and blocking medical treatment.
Now, you've represented a number of people on Nauru. Just tell us about the process you've gone through recently trying to get people who are in need of medical help to Australia.
Well, we've had a slightly different problem. It wasn't the Nauruans that are blocking medical treatment for some of the young children that we've brought to Australia for care. It's been the Australian government, and we've had a similar problem where bureaucrats and officials are actually overruling the recommendations of doctors that young people get care. So we've had to approach the federal court in a similar vein to this case, and judges have had to make the decision about whether the person was sick enough to come to Australia.
And as someone who's worked extensively in this area, excuse me, how have you felt about the news that there's been through over the last couple of weeks about Peter Dutton's decisions as immigration in relation to some au pairs?
Well, yeah, it's a stark contrast, isn't it? On the one hand, you've got children where doctors are pleading for their lives of the children to come to Australia, and the government officials are refusing them access to healthcare. And on the other hand, you see people writing letters or emails or contacting the minister for help with an au pair. It's a very stark contrast, and it shows a marked difference in compassion and in their approach.
Have you ever written letters directly to Peter Dutton when you've been frustrated at decisions and got a positive outcome?
We always write to the minister when people's lives are at risk, and from time to time he does relent, but it often takes threats of court or even going to court to get the government to move people. It's not like getting someone to give him a call and ask him to bring in an au pair.
Yeah, and so what's the ongoing situation on Nauru right now then with the asylum seekers who had tried to get to Australia but Australia sent them to Nauru?
What's the situation?
Yeah,
there's a sense of hopelessness in the island. I'm not sure the exact number, but many people have been moved to the United States, and those that are left are feeling hopelessness, and that hopelessness is affecting their mental health.
And what's the prospect of them getting to other countries? And I mean, the government would say there are options for them to go to a third country and they can just take that.
Well, sadly, there aren't that many options. The US is the only game in town. The government has actually blocked people from being taken in by New Zealand. And, the people are getting desperate. I think it's absolutely vital that the government does find third countries that they can move these refugees to as soon as possible.
And what do you think about the New Zealand option?
Well, there's an offer for 150 people to go. There's at least 109 children on Nauru who've been there for 5 years. They need to be moved as quickly as possible for their own health and welfare. Why can't they go to New Zealand?
Okay, George Newhouse, thanks so much for coming in and having a chat to us.
My pleasure.